For Lesson 7, we're going to learn about adjusting our workspace and our page settings. This is our workspace. This dark gray border here represents your cutting mat, and the white area represents your materials that you will be cutting on. This is just blank space. Anything out here will not print or cut, but it is a good place to do to be able to work on a design before you place it on your mat. So we're going to go here. First thing we're going to talk about is the grid lines that are on our page. This icon here will open your grid settings, and I can change my grid. Right now I have my grid set at 1 inch with half-inch divisions in between. So the spacing is going to modify the darker lines. So if I want to make that 2 inches, I can, or I can just simply type in 2 inches. The divisions here would each represent, at this point in time, an inch. I can remove the divisions altogether, or I can add multiple divisions in there. Typically I use 1 inch with no divisions. Now you can change the way that your settings, the isometrics of your grid. I've never used it, and I don't know why it would be used, but it is there. I typically keep it at square. I can change the color of my lines here, which I will often do. I find if I'm using one color that blends too much, I will go change the color setting. I can choose not to show a grid at all by selecting here. And then we'll go into snap to grid. And what this does, so if I'm drawing something or placing something, if I do not have it selected, anywhere I put my cursor is where my shape will be. It won't be changed. Now if I hit snap to grid, it's going to try and get that on the grid lines. So if I start my cursor in the middle of a grid, when I draw my square, it's still going to try and attach it to the grid lines. Now this, I'm certain, is part of the design edition only and not in basic. Is displaying my rulers, and what that'll do is that'll put a ruler here and here. I find it quite useful. There's plenty of times I will bring an item over just to measure it and see what size that item is. Even though here, if I click on it, it'll still show me, but sometimes that doesn't work for particular designs. The crosshairs, and again, this is only on the design edition. If I choose to show crosshairs, you'll notice little gray lines right around my cursor. And I don't know if you can see it on the screen or not. They're so faint. In showing guidelines, to bring a guideline out, I would go into my ruler, grab, and then I can put a guideline on my work area wherever I want to place things. And then I can choose to snap my design to the guide versus instead of to the grid. And it'll try and snap my design right up into a guide. It'll catch a little easier. Now, adjusting your mat, we can go over here. I can choose no mat at all, or I can choose the portrait mat setting, or the larger mat settings here. There's predetermined, or I can choose none. I mostly use none, especially when working with vinyl, because I don't use a mat. Here you can rotate your view, and I can honestly say I've never used it. I don't know why I'd want to rotate my work area. but I'm sure it serves a function. Here's where I can adjust my page itself, the page width, and I'm going to put the mat back on just to kind of give you an idea. So if I adjust the width of my page, that would represent the material that is stuck to my mat. Now I can go wider than my mat if I want to. Say I want to go 40 inches. But notice it's changed the mat layout from portrait to landscape. And this is a default setting within the program. But as you see, my page is now much larger than my mat. There are some preset. Now what you can't do, let me go do this. I can't do a 40 by 40 inch because it's just not possible. So if I attempt to do that, I can use it as a design area, but realistically you're not going to feed that into a printer. But this will help if you're sectioning a larger design and you just want to have a larger work area. There are some pre-sized options in here that you can set your paper to. One here that you may not realize is in here is your current printer. That would be the printer that you have defaulted selected. It will adjust your page to whatever size is in that's determined in your printer. And I'm going to talk to you about some borders. Let me change this back to a normal size, 12 by 12. So if I go show print border, you'll notice a faint line here, gray line. Let me turn these crosshairs off. That represents your printer capabilities. So if I go from here and I send something to printer, this is all that would be able to print. So anything that was outside of that border, of course, wouldn't print on my printer. Now if I say show cut border, you'll notice there's a very thin line on my red line around my sheet. That is the cut capabilities of the machine. And I'm going to show you a couple of advanced settings on this border. Now if you notice, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here, not quite to the very edge, and if I place my design to the very edge of my paper, it's not going to cut that at all. I can change this setting to allow me to cut all the way to the very edge. If I go into my general settings down here, and then I go to default, and I scroll all the way down, I can hit cut to the edge of the page, and then hit apply, and this will allow me to bring my cutter to the very edge of my page. Now on the show print border, let me zoom back out. Here, like I said, it's set to what my printer's set to. I can change that, so maybe my printer can handle a different size sheet. I'm going to hit send to printer, and it's going to bring up my printer screen. And then I'm going to go to my preferences, and say I have just like a photo size or a smaller size page in there, so I'll go A5, and then I'll hit OK and apply. And then I'm going to close this out, and you notice here my print border has changed to match my printer. That's the basics of your working area. Hope you found this helpful, and I'll see you at lesson 8.